want to help the Jedi hold the line against separatist forces, waging fierce battles across the galaxy, even though it's totally a zero-sum game and Emperor Palpatine is literally just playing both sides against the middle for his own nefarious purposes.
Roger, Roger.
Hey everybody, I'm John.
And I'm Bridget.
And I'm Aaron.
And this is the podcast where everyone is welcome, even your droids. This
is
Board Game
Cantina.
Hey folks, welcome back to Board Game Cantina. Today we're going to be playing Star Wars The Clone Wars, which is based on the popular Pandemic game system. So this episode is a big deal for us because we've got our first guest in the cantina with us.
Yay!
This is Aaron Jacobs, one of my longtime friends, collaborators, all around great guy, and has really made a whole career out of helping other people be successful. So Aaron, I'm really excited to delve into some of the aspects of the work that you do that are very satisfyingly relevant to Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
This is something I've been looking forward to for a very long time. First though, we should mix up something fun to drink.
Yes, please.
Bridget, what's on the menu for today?
In our last episode, we picked what might be the hardest recipe in the whole galaxy, definitely the hardest one in the Galaxy's Edge cookbook, a drink called the Photon Fizzle. This time, we thought we might pick a cocktail that had 5 steps instead of 25. It's called the Blurrgfire, and we're excited to try it out with you. Why don't you join us in the kitchen and we'll get started.
Okay friends, let's take a look at what you'll need to whip this up. The base for the drink is pre-mixed lemonade, bottled pomegranate juice. Habanero lime syrup is what gives the Blurrgfire its fire. It's a specialty item though. We had to order ours online, so we'll put a link in the show notes. The recipe calls for red salt for salting the rim, so we chose a berry flavored one from the store. And lastly, you want a lime. Or 2 if you're making a video and want it to look nice. You'll need your cocktail shaker, a jigger or shot glass for measuring, and some martini or rocks glasses to serve these up. Okay, let's do this. We'll start with 2 ounces of pomegranate juice. The recipe only calls for a ½ ounce of the habanero lime syrup, but we like to double or triple that for some extra kick. Next, add 4 ounces of lemonade. Shake all of that with some ice cubes in your cocktail shaker, then cut up a lime and use it to moisten the rim so it holds the salt. You can also use it for a citrusy garnish that smells great together with the berry-flavored salt. Aaron and John have very different ways of making cocktails. John likes to measure everything exactly. Aaron is a veteran bartender of many years and just eyeballs it. So we'll look at both and let you decide why you think John's approach is so much better.
Welcome, friends, to Hondo's Bar. Don't do about that much.
You're just eyeballing it.
Wow. And I like mine a little spicier, so we are going to do that, but maybe a little more than that. But here. I like how you step back. You're expecting that I'm going to douse you. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm just going to have it up. Little variation.
You can enjoy the
Little
Blurrgfire
variation
over
here.
ice like John, or serve it up like Aaron did. Both taste great, but John wants me to remind you, his version is the correct one.
It's totally the correct one.
Quick and easy. You can make 30 of these or 1 Photon Fizzle. It's up to you.
That's delicious.
Okay, let's grab
Good
our
job,
drinks
man.
and get back to the table.
All right, we are back from the kitchen. We got our cocktails. This is the Blurrgfire.
And it's super good.
Are we liking it?
It's
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite ones so far.
I think it has something to do with that kind of like savory rim salt that you got
Yeah.
going on there.
It's like, I mean, there's a lot of different flavored rim salts you can get now, but this one has a little bit of a berry flavor to it. But yeah, that's fun. That's a fun drink. It's called the Blurrgfire. What's interesting is blurgs do not breathe fire,
As far as we know,
to my knowledge.
never seen them breathe fire.
We haven't seen it. Doesn't mean it can't happen. So I'm not 100% sure why they call it that. We delved into a little bit of the Wikipedia material about blurgs and blurg history and
Is there
It's
a
got a
wealth
rich-
of information?
rich
on
history.
Blur. The historical world of the Blurrg.
Mm-hmm. And the Blurrgfire, because some of the drinks that they make reference to in Star Wars go way back. Like they're pulling from old stuff.
That you never actually saw play out on screen, but was referred to.
And sometimes it's a new thing or a thing they made up for Oga's Cantina at Galaxy's Edge. It kind of depends. So it's fun to just sort of look it up and see what's the story with this one. So Blurrg creature that we see in Mandalorian, first episode of The Mandalorian, which is 2019, I think, is throwing pretty far back. Which I did not know. I think at the time we were originally watching it, I was picturing it being some cool new creature design that they came up with for the show. In reality, it was a concept sketch going all the way back to Empire Strikes Back that was not used. And then not too long after that, post Return of the Jedi, there were 2, maybe 3 made-for-TV movies about the Ewoks.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Like one was called The Ewok Adventure. One was called Battle for Endor, and I swear there's one called Caravan of Courage. The weird thing is I went into IMDb looking for it and could not find it. So I don't know if maybe it got its name changed somewhere along the way. I got to do some follow-up homework. But the Blurrg was a creature in those Ewok movies.
Oh, really? And did you see it on screen? Like, was it
Battle for Endor? I think it's done as a stop motion creature.
okay? And did it look like?
Yeah.
Did it kind of look like what we have seen in Mandalorian?
Yeah. So when they're showing that in that very first or second episode of Mandalorian, I think it's episode 1, where he has to learn to ride it. Mm-hmm. It looks like it. It's just, it's been brought into today's effects, production quality. It's fun when they do deep cuts like that. It's also cool that they made it a meaningful part of the story, because we just rewatched that episode and we realized if Mando doesn't successfully learn how to ride that Blurrg, he doesn't earn the respect of Queel, the Ugnaught character, who then helps him get all his parts back from the Jawas and rebuild his ship. And then like nothing else in the show will happen. Mm-hmm. It sort of comes down to, can he ride that Blurrg or not? So it feels like there's some real stakes associated with it. So I really like that.
Who voiced that? Was that Nick Nolte?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So cool.
And yeah, good. It's a good characterization he brought to that, I thought. So the Ewok movies are not considered canon in the modern timeline. The first mention of it as a creature in what's now considered canon for Star Wars is in the Clone Wars. It's an episode right at the end of the first season called Liberty on Ryloth. So this is like 2009. The Blurrgs play a role in that episode. So you said during our break that you have watched Rebels.
Yes.
Sounds like.
Yes.
So one of the main characters in there is Hera Syndulla. Mm-hmm. She's a Twi'lek or Twi'lek, depending on what part of the galaxy you're from. And the Clone Wars introduces Hera's father as a pretty important character. His name is Cham Syndulla, and he's a revolutionary political leader on Ryloth, where the Twi'leks are from. And we later find out that he has a daughter, and you see her when she's younger. So when she turns up on Rebels as an older character is a cool way of paying off some of that earlier story. So that's the earliest canon reference to the Blurrgs. And then we were looking up, we like to see, are there references in the books to some of this stuff? And we're starting to delve into the Thrawn books now because he's coming back into the mainstream.
I loved those books so much when I was a teenager. They were fantastic.
They got us through kind of a dry spell.
Oh, yeah, because there was nothing new coming out.
Yeah.
Really Star Wars movie related. And I don't even think there weren't any TV shows at that time other than the already mentioned Ewok specials that happened and kind of lived in infamy a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you read the Heir to the Empire trilogy probably?
I think I read every Star Wars Expanded Universe book that I could lay my hands on. I'm sure there's a couple that I missed. But
there's a lot.
The Jason Jaina whole series with the Yuzan Vong, I did that. I did Timothy Zahn. I did Kevin J. Anderson. Like anything that I could grab.
Yeah, I think Timothy Zahn really kind of...
The Princess and the Scoundrel, I remember, was one of them.
Yep.
Which is hilarious now to say, because I'm like, it sounds like such a B romance novel. And I think the cover actually kind of was.
Yeah.
It did make it look kind of like Fabio and
in those, the
romance cover.
Some of that stuff does get into that territory. What's funny is now they're sort of bringing back Princess and Scoundrel as a they're sort of revitalizing that as a theme.
Oh.
So there's actually a new novel that just came out in this past year called The Princess and the Scoundrel.
Oh,
And it's about Han and Leia's wedding and the events that take place immediately after the Battle of Endor.
okay.
And it's really well written. And it's a way of introducing the Galactic Star Cruiser, Disney's Star Cruiser experience, into the canon timeline because
They honeymoon.
Wow.
They honeymoon there.
I did not realize they were going to do that. That makes sense,
That's
though.
great.
Yeah, that's where they spend their honeymoon. What's cool is, it's the Star Cruiser it's called the Halcyon, and it's meant to be part of a fleet of starships called the Chandrila Star Line because they're based from Chandrila, which is Mon Mothma's home planet.
Okay.
And she's the one who sends them on the Star Cruiser.
Let me guess. With also an undercover mission.
Well, I'll just say she's not entirely doing it just for fun. She has a lot going on behind the scenes, but really enjoying all the Mon Mothma stuff that we're getting lately. Yeah. So Bridget, you just finished one of the Thrawn novels just recently.
Yes, Heir to the Empire, I think. Or no?
Yeah.
Was it Heir?
I think you read
The first one.
Yeah, the first of the
original
90s era.
Yeah, the 90s era.
Yeah.
trilogy.
So because you sort of had a choice when you wanted to delve into him of like, do you go back and kind of start where he started, or do you read his rebooted canon, which starts in like 2018? And so you decided to go back to the roots.
Yes.
Which is cool. I
Yeah.
thought that was a cool choice.
It's a fun book.
So Aaron, you've been to Galaxy's Edge,
Yes, 2 times now.
and you probably spent some time in Oga's Cantina.
Yes. Just a very short amount of time. The first time we were there, we kind of, it can be really hard to get a reservation if it's,
Yes.
2 weeks or less. And even at that point, like, I think we did it a month out the first time, and we still barely got the whole family in of 4.
Yeah.
I think kind of had to grovel a little bit for the last 2 tickets to let us in, and they were really cool about it.
You have to really want it.
Yeah.
The cast members are very good about helping you solve.
They were. We already had 2, so they kind of just like made some room for us for the other 2. But we were only in there for a little bit. The second time, most recently, I went with my son, and the only spots they had left were actually in the morning, which was kind of weird to be in there in the morning, honestly. You kind of want to be over at Ronto Roasters in the morning with one of their egg scramble wraps or something.
Yep.
Which we ended up doing afterwards because there's one snack board you can get there.
Yeah.
It's not really breakfasty. And with a 14-year-old boy, he was kind of like,
I don't feel like I did breakfast yet.
nope. And so we went over and got a Ronto Roasters afterwards. But we had more time, and there were less people in there that time. So we really got to kind of examine everything a lot more and watch the droid that's playing the music go through its cycle several times and kind of see what it did and examine the things in the bar and like what's floating in that canister that they're adding to drinks. And
It's so immersive.
yeah, and I didn't realize that they actually had a routine, that the bartenders have a routine that they do at one point, which we missed the first time, or maybe that was a new
I
addition.
don't think we've seen that.
No, I didn't
Oh,
see
you
that.
haven't? Oh, they do
No.
a thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, at some point, and I don't know if it just happens like every hour on the hour or like how it shakes out, but they come over there and kind of do this whole like patter thing where they talk and something's going wrong with the electricity. There's surges happening, and all the whole bar, all the power goes out, including the robot that's playing the music, and everything goes out. And they're like, "Hey, don't worry, everybody. Like, we'll figure it out." And like, they get these big wrenches, and they're knocking on stuff and doing
Oh
things.
my
and
gosh.
Oh, wow.
different
I've never
things
seen
start to
that.
happen, and then it
Oh.
starts to come back up,
Oh,
and then
that's
power
cool.
back on, and then they talk about that this has been
I guess we'll
happening
have to
a
go
lot.
back.
Yeah, that's a new bucket list item because
Yeah.
we've spent a not insignificant amount of time lounging around in Oga's because we kind of wanted to try as many of the drinks as we could because they're all different, so that if we were to come home and try to make them, we would have something to compare it to.
Yeah.
But that's neat. I'm glad you said that because that's the first time I've heard anyone mention that at all.
Yeah, it was neat.
Oga's gets mentioned now in some of the expanded universe
Oh, yeah.
stuff. So in the second of the newer Thrawn novels that started in like 2018, 2019, the first of those books is just called Thrawn. And you get, instead of Heir to the Empire, which was post Return of the Jedi, you actually get earlier on the timeline Thrawn. Like, what was the story around how did he wind up in the Empire in the first place?
Okay.
How did his career
so
start?
when they found him in that on that planet.
Yeah. What went into that? How did he rise up through the ranks and sort of get to where he's at by the time you're reading Heir to the Empire?
Okay.
It's almost a prequel to that series. And then the second book is called Thrawn Alliances. And I think that's my favorite of all of them so far. You get, there's a lot of rivalry between Thrawn and Vader. Palpatine, I think, is a little tired of it and is looking to solve it by just sort of pitting them against each other. He sends them on a mission together that winds up taking them through Batuu as part of it.
Okay.
And they wind up in Oga's at one point, and there's some stuff that happens that winds up with blaster marks on the walls of the bar that you see when you're actually in there.
No way.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a really nice touch. And what's great about that story is it's flashes back to a Clone Wars time period when Thrawn had been to Batuu with Anakin. And so it's this awesome setup for a story where the reader is just savoring it, waiting for the moment when Thrawn puts 2 and 2 together and figures out it's the same guy
Oh, nice.
that he's on this mission with. It was really satisfying. So it was fun to just kind of be in there, and, you know, that immersion makes you feel like you're part of the story.
I just love that we've gotten to the point with storytelling and with a property as large as Star Wars and how expanded that it's gotten and kind of loved and fleshed out in all kinds of different areas. You never would have originally, probably Lucas even thought that it could happen that way. I mean, who could imagine that like your property is going to become this big and this many people are going to love it so much that they're also going to add to it.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see all the different tie-ins they can do.
Yeah. And with that kind of quality, I mean, now that you've got Timothy Zahn, you've got Dave Filoni, like they're all sort of at the top of their form.
And that everyone's kind of like the game we just played. Like it's not which director was better or which property is better or one else. It really does seem to be a who can we collaborate with and like make cool things with.
Yeah.
I feel like they've really done a good job, even if it's just from a PR optic standpoint. They've done a really good job of that with Mandalorian. And seeing how they've brought together so many different people to do different episodes, but like they're all working together and they all love it. And
Yeah.
I'm hard pressed to find another large story where that is happening.
Other than the MCU, I don't know that I've ever seen anything on this kind of scale, but it's really satisfying seeing it come together, especially when they can incorporate stuff from like when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's playing an important part in the story. It's really delightful. So we got together to play this board game, Star Wars, The Clone Wars. We'll do a little segment on the show called The Mission Briefing, where we just sort of give some fun facts about the game, where did it come from, etc. This is a game for 1 to 5 players. There's a real trend last several years of games that you can actually play by yourself. Usually if it's a cooperative game like this one, it's pretty easy to create a single player version where you can control pretty much everything that's happening. And solo gaming is now a big kind of part of the industry.
Huh, I didn't realize that.
If you can support a solo mode, it's a big one. And sometimes we'll play a solo game. We'll do it together, but we'll play it in a solo mode because it's fun to just kind of spend some time doing that.
Yeah.
The game advertises that the playtime is about 60 minutes. I'd say that's ambitious.
Maybe if it hadn't been our first time, all of us doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I could see it taking 60.
Those times never apply
Yeah.
if it's your first game, and you definitely would accelerate things if you don't have to explain the rules, you don't have to look stuff up.
Yeah.
And the turns actually do go pretty fast when you know.
Once we got warmed up, yeah, they went a lot faster. Yeah.
Designer is a gentleman named Alexander Ortloff, who has worked on lots of other great games. There's a game called Love Letter that's a really big hit in the board game world that he is a designer for. The publisher is Z-Man Games. Most relevant is they're the makers of Pandemic, which is a huge runaway hit. Z-Man Games is also the publisher of other huge designers like Uwe Rosenberg, who there's a real genre in the Eurogaming world of games about farming, like very gentle, peaceful games like Agricola. And Uwe Rosenberg is like the Steven Spielberg of those kinds of games. He's like board game royalty, and he's part of Z-Man Games. As far as when it came out, this is actually brand new. It just came out in 2022. So this is my first opportunity to play it, where you would buy this. It's very mainstream, so you'll easily find this at any in the gaming community. We call it the FLGS, the Friendly Local Game Store, which we like to support as much as we possibly can. You'll also find it at your big box stores like Target or Amazon. And on Board Game Geek, there's usually a rating, just like on IMDb for a movie. Average ratings for this game is 7.7, which is quite high. Usually anything above about a 6, I'll be able to play and have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
9 and 10 are theoretical, like you don't really see them. So anywhere from like a 7 to a 9, you're gonna have a good experience. So earlier today, we played a game of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which we're seeing the aftermath of here with you, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're gonna take a look at some of the highlights from that. All right, folks, here we are. We are ready to play Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And sometimes if people are not actively involved in board gaming as a hobby, are you one of those?
I am. I have a little anxiety around playing games in general.
Okay.
Because I like being good at things right away.
Yep. Yep.
And so there's always a learning curve with a new game.
Sure,
so
yeah.
thank you in advance for your patience and for teaching me something new.
Well, we should talk about that a little bit because you mentioned that to me in the past. And one of the things I thought it would be kind of fun to try and do on this show is to not just randomly pick a game and randomly pick a cocktail. We should try and pair those things up with our guests in some way that kind of makes sense, because we sort of do that when people come over normally. We're trying to do as much of this show as we can in a way that feels like more or less what we would be doing just anyway. We just decided to share it. And we collect a lot of games, and part of the reason for that, part of it's just a fun collecting hobby, but it's also fun to have lots of choices so you can kind of match up with your guests when they come over, like, pulled a few pieces for you. Let's have a look at what might be a good fit.
Yeah, kind of like you do with the drinks as well. It's like, if that's part of the fun, like when people entertain, it's like, what drink should we have that goes with this evening with these people?
Yeah.
Right.
So you're doing the same thing with board games.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
So this game was interesting to me for you for a couple of reasons. And one of it, well, I can think of at least 3 reasons.
Now I feel like it's a trap.
I promise it's not a trap. But one of them is the thematic material we're going to have fun talking about later. The Clone Wars is kind of near and dear to me and Bridget. Like we've had a lot of really wonderful discussions about it and some neat experiences. But also, it's cooperative. And when I was first getting into the hobby, I didn't actually understand that there were cooperative games where you're working together with the other players to try to win as a team against the game itself, as opposed to playing head-to-head, trying to beat each other, which even for me, it can be a source of anxiety.
It definitely is for me. I love cooperative games for that very reason. I too get a little bit of anxiety, especially playing with people I've never played before. I don't know how competitive they are.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to feel if I start beating them. And with cooperative games, there's less of that.
Takes a little bit of the pressure off, and there's a kind of a fun puzzle that you're solving together in a lot of these games. And this game is based on Pandemic, which not everyone has played, but a lot of people have. And it's considered kind of one of those gateway games that brings a lot of people into the hobby because it's pretty mainstream now. It's the type of game you would find at Target or on Amazon.
Okay.
And
it comes with different themes.
Yeah. And so in Pandemic, you are trying to cure and eradicate 3 different infectious diseases that have broken out around the world. So you're traveling around different countries in the world as scientists and researchers trying to do that work, and you're figuring out how to use each player's special ability, what's the smartest way to use your movement, so you're being efficient with it, and you're trying not to waste your turn if the infection is getting out of control over here or over here. A game about a pandemic has perhaps lost some of its charm recently, and yet the game system itself is extremely successful. And a lot of fun because it really does lend itself to that table discussion where you're working together with the other players. Yeah. And when they announced that they were doing the Clone Wars as a version of that, I don't know if I got excited right away because I wondered, like, will it make sense? Will it be just exactly the same? Will it really just feel like I'm playing Pandemic? And a lot of the elements in this game are directly corresponding to things that are in Pandemic. So if you already know how to play Pandemic, you almost already know how to play the Clone Wars, but I gotta say, the work that they did on theming this game is so spot on. that I think this might actually be my preferred way to play this game now.
Ooh,
It
this is
works
making me
really
excited.
well. So instead of curing diseases traveling around the world, we are traveling around the planets that we know in the galaxy from the Star Wars universe, fighting back separatist forces in the form of battle droids and blockade ships and certain named villains that are going to make our lives more
Yeah,
difficult.
see Grievous over there with his 4 lightsabers.
Yeah. General Kenobi. So that also is relevant to another hobby of ours, which is painting miniatures, which I'm not real good at, but I love doing it.
Man, the patience it seems like that's required for that, and the especially at 46 years old, the number of
So tiny.
prescription glasses I would need in order
Right.
to do that. Like,
Yeah, my eyesight's not what it was 10, 15 years ago, and yet it's so satisfying to finish even one
Yeah.
that it's worth it. And I've seen some gorgeous paint jobs people have done for this game already and some of the others that are out. So that's probably a thing that we'll end up talking about in future episodes. So in a lot of our episodes, you'll see us playing a game that we already kind of know and we've practiced, and now we're just going to play it for the episode, or we might teach a guest how to play it. In this case, you're going to actually see us learn this game more or less in real time. So there will be a lot of me referring to the rules, us talking through it as a team. We'll try to edit out anything that's too boring, but we actually kind of want people to see that if they're thinking about investing the time to learn a new game and they're not sure if that would be fun, sometimes the process of learning it with your friends kind of is the fun part. Everybody just sort of puts their heads together and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So as our players, we're going to play as 3 Jedi. The game comes with 7 that you can pick from. We thought it would be fun to start with our 3 favorites from the Clone Wars animated series, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Ahsoka Tano. And we recently got to meet the voice actors from that show, so we might talk a little bit about that later. So Aaron, do you want to pick one of those first? And then,
Are we picking from here?
yes, so those are the
Okay.
cards that go with them, and then right behind them there are the miniatures that go with them.
Oh, okay.
Those 3.
Okay.
Perfect.
I see.
I'll
Yeah.
just pick the one closest to me. I believe that's Kenobi.
Okay, yeah, that looks like Kenobi doing
Sweet.
his pose.
All right.
Bridget, would you hand me Anakin?
Okay.
I didn't even ask. I'm assuming you liked to play as
Yes,
Ahsoka. Is
you
that-
assumed correctly.
Okay.
I almost went with it because I was like 2 lightsabers are always better than 1. But
I would have been fine if you picked her, but I'm glad I ended up with her.
That was close. That was a close one.
first hurdle jumped. All right.
And then we'll take the cards that go with them. So they're on that stack that's fanned out there.
Okay. Here's your Anakin. Here's my Kenobi.
So each of these characters has a special ability that you'll have the opportunity to learn and use. And a lot of times, a lot of games give you an aspect of a special ability that's unique to
Yes.
your player. And a lot of times, the way you would use them or why they're useful doesn't become apparent until you play a round or two, and then you're like, oh, I see
Now I see
why
how
I
it
need
works. Yeah.
And it's easy to sometimes forget your special ability. So
Yeah.
It's good to keep referring. Should we read them aloud?
Yeah, let's do that.
Ahsoka Tano. Free action. Exhaust up to 2 cards. For each, deal 1 damage of your planet or a connected planet. And it has a nice quote. Should I read that?
Yeah.
Following direct orders isn't always the best way to solve a problem.
That sounds like Ahsoka.
Yeah, so it's like Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Anakin says he has a free action attack. You can use any of your cards as if they were attack during this attack. So this is an example of where this stuff will make more sense once we've kind of seen how the mechanics of the game work. You're going to have a variety of cards that will let you attack directly or have stealth or will be protective like armor for you. Anakin can sort of treat any of his cards as attack cards. It's
Very
essentially his influence over the guys in his squad
Okay.
to get them to attack, even if maybe that's not their not their strong suit. The quote is, "It's when things don't go as planned that we Jedi are at our best." Well, lots to unpack there.
Let's see. For Obi-Wan Kenobi, we've got draw 4 squad cards, then place 3 of them on the bottom of the deck in a random order. And his quote is, "It takes strength to resist the dark side. Only the weak embrace it."
Interesting.
Okay.
So we're gonna go through the order of what's in a round and how you use your turn.
Okay.
And it'll just take doing it a couple times for it to start to feel natural. Last bit of setup we need to do is we need to place our characters on a starting planet that essentially represents like where were they finishing up their last mission. So like where are they coming from as this starts to
Happens.
play
Okay.
out. So there's one for you, there's one for you,
Okay.
and there's one for me.
Christoph is here.
Anakin's on Coruscant.
I'm on Naboo.
So maybe for
Hanging
the
with Jar Jar.
overhead camera, the card gives you a little visualization of the game board with a little red dot for the planet to help you just find it more easily, which is a nice touch. So mine says blockade, 2 health. You cannot affect missions, droids, or villains on a blockaded planet. Does yours say the same thing?
Yeah.
Mine does too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a special ability or anything. That's just a rule to know. As those Federation blockade ships come into play, they will essentially block you from doing much until you get rid of them.
Okay.
So that's just a thing, a general thing to keep in mind. Okay, so on the back of that card though is just a reference, like a little cheat sheet of what actions you can take. You essentially have 4 different things you can pick from, but you get 4 actions on your turn, and you can do any of those as many times as you want. So you don't have to do 4 different actions. The first one is fly, which is just moving between planets.
Okay.
If you want to just do that 4 times and that's your turn, sometimes that's what you need to do.
And to fly, you can only.
Oh, in the
Follow.
direction that they're connected.
You're going to
Okay.
use those lines, so it'll essentially be a series of hops.
lanes?
Perhaps those are hyperspace lanes. That makes sense to me.
Yes. Maybe we'll see a Purgle.
Okay, so that is
Fly.
fly. The next one is attack, and this is how we're going to deal with these separatist forces that are popping up on the planets.
Okay.
Is with attack. This would be analogous if you were playing Pandemic to curing diseases, which show up as little wooden cubes to kind of represent portions of the population being infected. Instead, we're going to attack battle droids. This is an element that's not in Pandemic, which is this 12-sided die,
Okay.
which I'm pretty excited about because it's a 12-sided die.
Inherently excited about it.
Yep.
Yes.
And it has 2 different symbols that I'll put where the camera can see. One is like a little explosion with a circle around it. And the other is, I don't see one by itself, is a little explosion with no circle around it. The one with the circle is good. The one without the circle is bad.
Oh, for us.
For
okay.
us.
Okay.
Yeah, the one with the circle essentially represents a success. And there you might be fighting battle droids or trying to complete one of these missions. Whatever it is, the one with the circle counts as a success towards that thing.
Okay.
The one without the circle represents damage that you are taking. And you'll usually take some even if you're successful. Just the collateral damage of having been in a battle, even if it goes your way, that's telling you how much. So we end up rolling this, and you'll have some combination of successes and failures, and then we'll count those.
Okay. But each roll is one of those 4 actions that you get during your turn.
So if you were to say, okay, for my first action on my turn, I'm going to do an attack. Then you would roll that die.
Yep.
You would deal, I'll move off of Coruscant for a minute. Let's take just a test example and say, okay, I'm on Alderaan with these battle droids. And for my first action, I want to do an attack. I would roll this die, and for battle droids, they only have 1 health each. So you would need 2 successes if you wanted to kill both of those battle droids. So I happened to roll a 2.
And you got them.
Success. So then those would get removed from the board. Alderaan is safe for the moment. Now, if this is anything like Pandemic, we should enjoy this state of the board while it
Really?
lasts because it has a real tendency to snowball.
Okay.
And pretty soon it's out of control and you kind of get overwhelmed. And if you do, that tracker over on the left side that says threat will continue to advance. And if it gets all the way down to the bottom where we see Palpatine's face, that means galaxy's overrun. It's a lost cause. We're done.
Okay.
Which happens a lot. They design cooperative games to be pretty tough to win so that you don't instantly beat it, get bored, and stop playing. They want it to be a fun challenge. Your win-loss ratio, kind of like if you're playing solitaire cards, you might win 2 or 3 out of 10, something like that. So that's just a thing to know is if you lose, it's not necessarily bad or even unexpected. It's more about just having fun having the most cinematic loss you could possibly have. And that's enjoyable too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll pay attention to that threat meter and things that would cause it to go up, we'll learn about over the course of the game, and we will want to try and avoid those as much as we can. So that's attacking. Now, an interesting thing about attacking is you can power up your attack using these squad cards. So we got 3 to start with. You'll be able to draw more, and they will help you handle more powerful attacks than what I needed in that case. I only needed 2 successes. But if I was on a planet where there was more battle droids, I would have needed to roll better than that. And if I couldn't, then I would use my squad cards to supplement.
And we each have different squad cards, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And your hand of what you have will change over time.
Okay.
Because this is a thing I thought was really clever, is when you take damage using these little explosion icons, the way that that's reflected is you have to discard squad cards as though your people in your unit are getting killed.
Taking damage.
And now you don't have the benefit that they were giving you by being part of your group. So there's 3 or 4 different kinds of these cards. And Aaron, I'm going to orient everything towards you because that's the way we're going to have this overhead view so that it's just easier for people at home to see. And the top left corner of the card is telling you what kind of card that is. So if it's got the red clone trooper helmet, that's an attack card. So its ability is always going to be giving you a success that you then get to add to whatever you roll.
Okay.
And you probably heard the word exhausted a minute ago. There's this concept in a lot of games of tapping or exhausting the card, mainly so to remind you that you can't just keep using it. It's used up for a while, and so you just turn it sideways, and then that reminds you, oh, I already used that guy.
Oh, okay.
And then at the beginning of your next turn, the first step in your turn is refreshing all of your cards, or you turn it back and now they're ready again. These guys are stealth, and they are also going to contribute attack. And there's certain cards that will affect how attack cards versus stealth cards behave. So that's why they'll get referred to differently. So that's a thing that'll become more clear as we go on.
This is a different one from those two if you want to talk about.
Oh, yeah. So the little ship icon looks like a Republic cruiser is transport. And your normal movement, if you were taking that fly action, is to move one planet. And that's your movement. If you use a transport card, you tap it or exhaust it, and then it contributes, or it doubles the flight from your planet. So
you can move 2 spaces instead of 1, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
If you choose to fly.
Yeah. And it's limiting you to only using one of those. So if you had 3 ships, you can't tap all 3 of them because it's not like you could go climb in 3 ships and get there 3 times as fast.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But with some twine, I could, no.
No. You could find a solution. Just MacGyver it.
Yeah, MacGyver it. There we go.
Okay, so fly and attack, we talked about. The third option is reinforce. That's where you draw a new squad card. This is how you get more of these cards. So you could be like, for my next action, I'm going to reinforce. And then you would just draw the top card from the squad deck.
Okay.
Add it into your hand, and now that gives you something helpful.
And you keep these cards throughout the rounds? Once you don't put them back into the deck once you use them in one of your turns, right?
Because they represent people in your unit.
Okay. So you
and
get to collect them throughout the game.
They're with you until they die, in which case they go into this squad discard pile.
Gotcha.
And you have a hand limit of 7. So if at any point, and even if you have 7 cards, you can still draw. You just have to then immediately play something or discard down to 7 so that you're not going from one turn to the next with more than one. Okay, and then the last option is attempt mission. And this is sort of analogous to the kind of punchline of Pandemic where you're trying to wipe out the disease finally. But it's handled a little different. That really does feel thematic and appropriate to the Clone Wars. It's called attempting a mission. And that's where our Jedi characters are going to come together on a planet that is marked with one of these mission markers. So right now there's 2 missions that are active, this orange one and this white one. So the marker is just telling you where is that mission happening. This one's happening on Kamino. And this white one is happening on Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet. And what's cool is every single one of these mission cards is describing an episode of the Clone Wars animated series, which I didn't realize they were going to do, but I love it. It's perfect. So to attempt a mission, it's kind of like doing an attack, but instead of attacking battle droids, you're sort of attacking the mission itself. And it is going to tell you on the card how many successes you have to have.
Okay.
And so...
And if there's any, caveats.
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes, so there will be a when drawn action on some of these, which I actually haven't done yet. So some of these have an effect on the board at the moment they come out. That's actually also part of setup, and I missed it. So we'll need to do it before we start.
We'll fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post. This mission is called Conspiracy, and it is requiring you to have 5 successes, but it's requiring you to have 5 stealth successes. If you are contributing cards to your die roll, you can only contribute these purple ones and have them count.
Okay.
And then if you succeed, you're going to take damage in the form of any of those explosions you rolled, +1, because there's 1 on the card itself.
Okay.
So you wind up losing some folks in the process. Battle of Kashyyyk is almost the exact same situation, except you would, if you were going to contribute successes from a card, there'd have to be a red attack card.
Now, do I have this right that we not only are trying to get rid of the separatist forces on this board that might be here, but we need to achieve all of these in order to beat the game?
Yep.
Okay.
So just like in
This is like the main storyline.
yeah.
And then, okay.
Yeah. So in Pandemic, you're trying to manage the spread of disease so it doesn't overwhelm the board while you try to come up with the cure to eradicate the diseases. In our case, we have to manage the battle droids occupying the planets, because if they overrun the galaxy, it's game over. So they are trying to do that before we can finish these
Solve
3
those.
missions.
Okay.
The game lets you adjust the difficulty, and the way that you do it is by having more or fewer missions. So we are playing on the absolute easiest beginner level.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Which is three missions, partly for time, partly because when we're doing a learning game and we have no strategy, we just need to see it play out, and then we're like, oh, okay.
Now I get it.
Now I get it. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the post game of what do we think we learned anything about how we would tackle it on a harder level. But that's kind of part of the fun. So this first mission, let's do the setup. It's called Conspiracy. They actually put a little blurb at the bottom, which is what at the beginning of the Clone Wars, there's always like an opening narration.
Yeah. There's always like a quote, like a piece of wisdom fortune cookie thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So they do a fortune cookie tag, but then the narrator will do the opening.
Oh yeah.
Where are we in the story?
Like it's one of those reels from a serial.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
When a clone suddenly kills a Jedi.
I love that voice style. I wish we could bring that back to so many things.
Yeah.
Like when you're opening and looking at the New York Times every morning.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like.
Okay, so this is when a clone suddenly kills a Jedi. He is taken to the laboratories of Camino to determine the cause. This is one of the best episodes of all of the Clone Wars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this one. The premise was, what happens if a clone trooper has his Order 66 chip go off prematurely?
Oh, I don't think I've seen that one yet.
It's so good because it raises all these questions. It puts Palpatine in a situation where he has to scramble to like do some cleanup.
Yeah, because it happens beforehand.
Yeah,
Oh, that's an interesting
and it's
device.
super emotional.
Yeah.
Fantastic storyline. So the setup for this card is when it's drawn, any Jedi returns 1 attack or stealth card from their hand to the box. So it's like someone got killed in the process. But they're not going to have you kill one of your Jedi. One of us is going to kill one of the cards from our hand. I've got 2 stealth, so I'll discard one of those. So that represents the person accidentally getting killed. The setup for Battle of Kashyyyk. Separatists launch a large-scale invasion of the Wookiee homeworld, targeting the planet's oil refinery. The setup is fill Kashyyyk to 2 droids. Okay, I think we are set up for real now. So just have that handy to remind you of what your actions are.
Okay.
And then in the bottom left of the board, easiest for Aaron to see, is the steps that happen on a turn. So step 1 is probably refreshing your cards.
Yeah, ready
Is that
your
what this is?
cards is 1. Number 2 is do 4 actions.
Yep,
And 3 is activate villain.
yep.
And 4 is invade planets. Hand limit is 7 cards at all times.
So the first thing we should probably mention before we roll into it is the concept of villains, which I think is new to this game. I'm not sure there's anything exactly like it in Pandemic. And they have you choose a villain to play against out of the 4 that they provide. And they recommend playing against Asajj Ventress, who's one of our favorite Clone Wars characters, when it's your first game and you're still learning. So we've got Asajj Ventress placed on a Naxos. There was some setup that we did before you got here, Aaron, that just kind of pre-populates the board with some stuff. So you're not starting, with nothing. And she's starting out there, and she has her own card, which is up at the top of the board. and that has an effect that's in play the whole time. Bridget, would you mind reading that? Because I can't remember what it is.
Sure. The Sith assassin strikes against the Jedi and the Republic at the command of her master, Count Dooku.
So that's some thematic text. And then I think she has an ability that's in play.
If Ventress is on a mission planet, advanced threat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So in the villain activation step that you mentioned at the end there, the villain will move around, I believe, to some extent. And if she winds up on either of these planets that's marked with the tokens, that's going to speed up that threat counter moving.
Oh, okay.
And then, so this may just be a quick game
I got you. Okay.
if we don't figure out how to manage that. So that'll be part of the interesting challenge.
Okay.
And then the invade planets?
Invade
step,
planets.
Number 4. We're going to place more battle droids based on this number. So for starters, we'd be placing 2 battle droids, and we'll use this deck. We'll draw a card off of this deck, and it will basically just say which planet to put those droids on.
Okay.
It's a way to kind of randomize where they're popping up so you can't predict it. And then as the game progresses and things worsen, there will be more showing up at one time.
All right.
Yeah. And if we reach a point where we need to place some and there aren't any more to place, then instead of doing that, threat goes up. And so that it kind of snowballs to the point where it's a lost cause. So hopefully we won't get to that point. So the next thing we need to do is decide who's going to go first. We can sort of decide that together. Do you guys have any preference?
I think last time we did youngest to youngest starts.
Okay.
That's how we was playing in my
what?
house.
So
Yeah.
board game rules always have like a fun description of who goes first.
Yeah.
It's usually something funny or something tied to the game. In this game, it's whoever has the high ground goes first.
So the tallest.
It's probably the tallest. I think that
Probably the
you.
tallest. I'm 5'9".
5'6".
5'10" and a half.
You win. You have the high ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So I will go first, and normally I'd start by readying my cards. These are some extra cards we're not using in this game. So I don't have to do that since we didn't do anything before. The second step is I'm going to use 4 of my actions. I am Anakin on Coruscant. And so what I want to do is start getting rid of some of these battle droids. I'm going to be able to attack. I'm going to be able to contribute 2 successes. So if I could roll at least 1, tap both of these guys, I could take out all 3 of those battle droids that are next door to me on Ord Mantell. So I'll use my first action to fly to Ord Mantell. I'll use my second action to attack. So I'm going to roll. I got 2 successes, and then I'll tap or exhaust. Magic players always say tap, so that's still in my brain from 25 years ago. So I'm tapping. Oh, they actually named the clones. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
These are all characters from the show.
I have Colt.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna exhaust Razor to contribute 1 more success to the attack. That'll remove all 3 of those battle droids. Would you mind setting those off in the pool over there?
In the pool over there. All right. They are gone. Well done.
Good job.
Okay, so we freed up Ord Mantell, and I've still got 2 successes left. We want to keep our eye on the ball about these missions.
I'm closest to the missions. I can do that on my turn.
Okay. Should I just try and clean up
Yeah.
over here a little bit?
Yeah.
Why don't I try and do the same thing on Dathomir then?
Okay.
So I'll use my third action to fly to Dathomir through the hyperspace lane.
I'm surprised Ventress doesn't start on Dathomir.
Yeah, totally. Well, they randomize it so that you can't dial in your strategy too easily. Yeah, Asajj Ventress is from Dathomir
There you go.
originally. And that is it for my 4 actions.
Yeah.
So then the third thing was
Activate villain.
activate the villain. So Bridget, would you draw a villain card that's underneath that blue marker and hand it to me, and then put the marker back? The marker is there to remind you to keep looking at the villain's card because they all have a different effect. Hers was if she's on the mission planet, it advances the threat. Very easy to forget to do that when it's an hour from now and you're focused on other things. So I actually thought that was a really clever mechanism to keep you from forgetting to do that. We play a Harry Potter themed game called Hogwarts Battle, where the villains all have special abilities like that. And sometimes it'll be 3 turns later and you're like, oh, we haven't been doing it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Draco. Okay. So Her villain card says stalk. Ventress on board. Move Ventress one planet toward the closest mission. So she has different action if she's on the board versus off the board. Because if you attack her, you can actually get her off the board, but that doesn't mean she's gone.
Oh, really?
It just means she's gone like for that episode.
Temporarily.
She'll be back.
Yeah.
So she is on the board. So her action is to move her one planet toward the closest mission.
I think that's Kashyyyk because
Yeah, I
it's
think
4 moves to
so.
get to Camino. Yep. 3 to get to Kashyyyk.
Yep. And if there's more than one way she could go, you get to just pick.
Okay. Mandalore?
Yeah,
Look
I think
good?
so. No?
What would be the advantage of Onderon instead of Mandalore?
I guess they're both 3. So we get to choose what's best for us. Is what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm guessing just one figure instead of 2
Yep.
would be better.
Love that.
Okay.
Love that for us.
I love that for us.
Okay. And then that can go into the villain discard pile.
Okay.
And then let's see if there's more for activating the villain. Do not draw any additional villain cards unless instructed. So this is the moment where we would draw this many invasion cards from the top of that invasion deck.
Okay.
And that's going to tell us where we're going to place more battle droids.
Mon Cala.
Okay. So that gets 1 battle droid.
Okay. And the second one is Felucia.
Okay.
Here. Okay.
So, and there's a limit of 3 droids on a planet. So we're never going to see like 6 or 7. What happens is if there's 3 droids and you would place a 4th because of a card like that, then an occupation happens. And that's where those little Federation blockade ships.
Oh, so if they
Come
get
into
4
play.
figures, that's when a blockade ship happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
They
got
basically
you.
established enough of a hold over the planet that it's blockaded, and then it becomes a real pain.
Okay,
try
so
to
priority
fix
is
it.
definitely if there's 3, like that's what we want to address.
We want
first.
to keep the droid count
Yeah.
to a minimum if we can.
All right.
So that was the invade planets step.
Yes.
And then is there another one after that?
It says hand limit is 7 cards at all
Oh,
times.
okay. That's just a reminder. So that's it for my turn.
Okay.
So
Cool.
do you want to go next, Aaron, and we'll just go clockwise?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. So the first thing is I have to move to a connected planet. So I guess I am going. Am I going towards the mission, or am I getting rid of some of these guys? I wonder what's best for us. Since it's cooperative, I will put that question out there.
Yeah, we're pretty droid heavy on this side of the board.
Yeah.
So
Maybe take some more of them out.
Because are you about to work on that one?
I am. I'm going to move towards the mission, which is just a couple stops for me. Aaron is.
I could do
on the
2 stops. I
move.
mean, I'm 2 stops from basically anything. I'm three stops from getting there, or 2 stops from getting to and clearing out some droids.
Yeah. If you start moving towards Kashyyyk,
Okay.
that puts us in a position to both do a mission and maybe get more droids.
Okay, like defensively?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what
So
I'm thinking.
if I take 2 of my turns, then I can 1, 2. I can get to Kashyyyk. Is that what we want to do?
It would be 3,
1,
2,
2, 3.
3.
Okay, got you.
unless you want to use your ship card.
Oh, I do have a ship. That's right.
Should we do that? Then you can.
Yeah.
That doubles up, right?
Yeah.
In one turn.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm turning it sideways, and then I just go twice, right?
For your first.
That's your first
that's
action.
That's my first action. Okay. And for my second action, do I want to be on Kashyyyk and actually get rid of those droids? Or am I just like defensively trying
Do we need to get rid of the droids before we can start the mission?
No.
Okay.
But if the planet gets blockaded, or if Ventress were to go there,
Oh,
then you can't attempt the mission until you fix that.
okay.
So keeping those droids to 0, just
better.
It's a
Okay.
little better.
Then I'm going to use my second turn to go 1 more. Right? Okay. And then for my third, I will roll. Okay. 2.
Ooh, nice.
Awesome. So I don't have to use any of my special stuff. I can just get rid of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Off the planet, back into
Nice.
the pool.
Okay, so that's my third move. And fourth,
You could attempt.
I could
the
attempt
mission.
some of the mission.
You'll need 5 successes, and you've So you'd have to roll 4. Is that even on
Is that even
there?
possible?
I thought I saw one. No, I think 3 is the most you can get.
So even just to buy in to like start it, I have to like get 4.
You need both of those cards.
Need both those.
So you could draw another squad card, and then on your next turn, you might have more.
Yeah, because I can have up to 7. So let's do that. So I will draw another squad card from here.
Yep.
Okay. And then that leaves 1 turn left.
I think that was your
That was it.
4th turn.
That was it. That's 4. Okay, so I'm done.
Yeah.
Move, attack, and draw.
And draw.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm done.
It's
And then I
tough.
can do this back. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize they had named the clones. It makes total sense now, but
Yeah.
as a nice surprise. So now you've done your 4 actions. So step 3 is activate the villain.
Oh, yes.
So you're gonna draw the top card of that deck that has the little blue thing on it. That's Ventress's next card.
Planet Under Siege.
Okay, this is a special event where the situation in the galaxy gets a little worse. Oh, they put it right on.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Sure.
Advance the invasion marker.
Perfect.
Is that this one?
No.
The
Oh, yes.
green
Yes.
one?
Sorry.
So we're going from
2 to
2
2.
to 2.
Yep.
So we're still at 2.
Then number 2, draw the bottom card of the invasion deck and fill the matching planet to 3 droids.
Ooh. Okay, bottom
Well,
card.
all the work I just did. Just the window.
Oh, Geonosis. Okay.
This is why it's
it's
good
gonna
that you
be
did that, though, because
Here.
it goes fast.
And then 3, shuffle the invasion discard pile, then place it face down on top of the invasion deck.
Okay. Will you shuffle those, please? You're better at that.
Yeah, so you wind up getting more droids where you already got them. That's not good for the galaxy.
Okay.
Okay, that was Planet Under Siege.
That's
And then
it?
you can discard that to
Okay.
that villain discard pile. So that was the activate villain step. Now we're on invade planets. So you'll draw 2 invasion cards and place where it says 2.
Mon Cala. That is up here. Oh, there's already 1 on Mon Cala, so there's 2. And Geonosis. Okay, so we already have 3 on there. That makes it 4.
Okay, so
on
instead
Geonosis.
of playing that 4th one,
We now put a
we have an occupation. We got an occupation, people.
Oh, no.
red alert.
Does the droid stay on there that was a 4th or
No.
Just 3 and a ship now. Okay.
Instead of placing the
Instead
4th droid, we're going to advance that threat marker over
Ah.
there. And then you're going to put one of those Federation blockade ships on Geonosis.
There we go.
Do the 3 stay on there?
Yes.
Oh, it's a ship and 3.
Yep. Now, what's nice is if you're used to playing Pandemic, when the equivalent of that happens in that game, there is a sort of ripple effect that can happen where it can spread from there, and it's bad. It's bad to manage. So
So I know where I'm going on my
we don't
turn.
have to do that in this version of the game.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the
That's it then, right?
invade planet step. Yeah, so that's Aaron's turn.
Okay, now it's my turn. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So I will head towards Geonosis, it looks like. I'm going to use my BTL Bywing to get there in 1 turn.
Nice.
And then I think I better attack. Is there a special attack to get rid of that ship?
I'm just checking for that. I
Okay.
think they take 2 damage. Droids have 1 health, blockades have 2 health. And if you if you don't get enough damage to handle them all, you have to do the blockade ship first before you can do anything else.
Okay. I do have 1 attack from my clone. And then if you could help me figure out if my Ahsoka Tano special ability would help me in any way.
Exhaust up to 2 cards. For each, deal 1 damage on your planet or a connected planet. That's cool. So that allows her to take out battle droids on neighboring planets without having to use an action to travel there.
Huh.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
But I don't know, because you're already there.
It's not going to help me in this scenario.
What's interesting is it doesn't say 2 attack cards. So like you could have a ship card or an armor card. And I think those would give her attack ability. I think it's meant to represent her leadership, influence. So like if you have C-3PO and R2-D2.
I do,
What
but
do
I
they
can only use them on a mission planet. I can add 2 attack to a mission attempt or attack on the mission planet.
Yeah, those are ally cards, which are a type we didn't talk about yet, and they give you a special ability. But your Ahsoka special ability does not say that you can only use a certain type of card. It just says exhaust a card, which means no matter what kind of card she has, you can exhaust it for an attack. So you could get an attack out of both of those cards.
Even though I'm not on a mission planet.
Even though you're not on a mission planet, because it doesn't say.
Okay.
This is one of those gray areas where sometimes you find yourself hitting up the forums on BoardGameGeek.com to see are people talking about this scenario, and sometimes it'll actually be covered in an appendix in the rule book if there's a special card where you need to have it talked through. I just haven't checked. So I would, for now, usually what you end up doing is just making a decision. How do we want to play this? So I would say go ahead and exhaust both of those.
Okay.
And add them to whatever. Did you roll that?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm going to roll it right now.
Okay. I think you want to roll. I mean, you're going to need everything, but in general,
Yes.
I would roll first.
Okay.
Because you might not need to exhaust
Oh,
everything.
don't exhaust them yet. I see what you're saying. Okay. Got 1 damage and 2 attack. With Colt, that's 3. And if I use this card, that's 5. Right?
Okay.
C-3PO and R2-D2 add 2 more attacks. So that's a total of 5 attack and 1 damage.
Okay, so that's exactly what you needed, which is great. What I was just double checking is whether you receive the damage after you deal the damage, and you do,
Okay.
which is good. So you're going to take a casualty as you remove all those from the board.
So I remove all the ship
Yep.
and all 3 battle droids with that roll
Yeah.
Nice.
and the cards.
Yeah, that was good.
It's great.
Good turn.
Okay.
And then you have to discard one of your cards as your damage.
Okay. I'm going to have to say goodbye to Colt. You did well, brother.
Yeah, we hardly knew you.
Where's the discard for?
It's over here.
Okay.
Okay, then you're going to do your activate Ventress with the top card of her deck.
Have I done all my moves, though?
Oh,
I don't think I have. My first one was to move here. The second one was to attack.
oh, great.
So I have 2 more moves, right?
Okay.
So should I head towards Camino?
Yeah.
I could land there. That's my 3rd move and my 4th move. So I
Yeah.
will end up on the mission planet of Camino.
Okay.
Okay. Then my turn's over. And
Okay.
now we...
Activate villain.
You're going to draw Ventress's top card.
Okay. Stalk. Ventress on board. Move Ventress 1 planet toward the closest mission.
And she's closer to the white one.
Yes.
So she's going to go to Umbara.
That's here.
And then you're going to draw 2 invasion cards.
We've got Sereno, which is... Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
So I've got another
We have
occupation.
4 droids on Sereno, so we take that one away. Now we have 3 droids and
And the threat
1
goes up.
ship. Oh, and the threat goes up.
Yep.
Now we're at threat level 2.
Yeah.
Alderaan. Now there are 3 droids on Alderaan.
All right. I'll try to prioritize that one on my turn. You did 2?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your turn. So do we think, I don't know, Sereno's already occupied, so I don't know if that can get worse, really.
I think you should move towards Alderaan.
Yeah, I think I should too.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So now we'll Ventress out.
Roll the die. Move Ventress 1 planet per successful.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey,
Toward the
that's good.
closest mission.
Yeah.
Then each Jedi on her planet or connected planet suffers 1 damage. She's all out there alone
Yeah.
in the outer
As
rim.
she should be.
Yeah.
Although
I think she likes it that way.
I sort of have mixed feelings about Asajj Ventress.
Is that more I'm going to learn about once I finally complete my education?
She's got a very,
She has
very
quite the journey.
long
Yeah.
Wikipedia article. She's one kind of like Darth Maul, where it starts out pretty straightforward, not a whole lot to know. And then the further you get into it, there's a lot of nice complexity. It's a really good, memorable character.
Okay. Let's populate some planets. Mon Cala gets 1 battle droid. Well, now it has 3. Dathomir gets 1 battle droid. Is that,
Yep.
where am I? There. Now it has 1. Mission Planet gets 1. Okay.
All right.
That's it for your turn?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so I'll refresh all my stuff.
Nice.
Okay. Do free action, draw 4 squad cards. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7. Now that we know what we're going to do,
You could trade.
is there some trades I could do to help us out, knowing what the buy-in is?
I don't think you need to.
Okay.
You have almost enough to do it on your own.
Okay.
If you rolled 2 successes, you can single-handedly finish that mission. And if whatever you don't roll, I'm going to be able to give you because I'm
Okay.
already on the planet.
Okay.
So I think it's sort of.
So just go there
I think you
first.
have it in the bag at this
All right.
point.
So just go there. I don't need the ship.
Mm-mm.
If I use the ship, does it not use a turn?
No, the ship.
It
Just,
always augments a turn. It can't be in lieu of a
In lieu
turn.
of.
That's right.
And benefit me.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my first move.
Okay.
My second move would be to roll, right?
Yep.
Look at that.
Wow.
You did it all by
So
yourself.
damage, get rid of that. 2, and then I just use all these cards.
Yeah. And you needed no backup from Anakin whatsoever. You just
Just Obiing out a little
He's
bit.
pretty powerful Jedi.
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah.
That's a win.
Awesome. Does that mean we win the game?
Yeah.
We did.
Oh my gosh,
Good
you've
job.
totally cured me of
Good
my
job.
new game anxiety. Thank you very much, both of you.
We interrupt this high five to bring you breaking news from the heart of the Republic. In their excitement, our heroes celebrated prematurely, failing to play an entire phase of the game. Folks, mistakes were made. Partly because we really did get excited here, partly due to some time pressure on our shooting day. The win condition for Star Wars The Clone Wars is not simply to complete all of your missions, which is how we were playing it here. The actual win condition is once you complete your last mission, you flip the villain card over, complete the setup instructions on the back, and satisfy the success conditions that show up there, which are going to be different for every villain. That way you can have a different finale experience depending on which villain you're playing against. Super cool. We just weren't looking for it because it's not part of regular pandemic gameplay. In our case, since we were playing against Ventress, what we should have done is moved her to the planet Sullust as our setup. Then we all would have had to travel there to square off against her. We would have needed 15 successes, and they could have been either color. With the ally cards we probably had pretty decent odds. Just wanted to acknowledge the highly questionable ethics of this supposed win you're seeing here. Sorry about the totally unearned high five. It does feel very prequel era thematic that we unwittingly moved the goalposts to make a victory easier to achieve without realizing that's what we were doing. I feel personally responsible for our shady political and military shenanigans, but I think we all know who's behind this. All right, players, as you were. Yeah, dude, that was really great. We had maybe 1 or 2 rules goofs,
Yeah,
but
we
that's
okay,
very
though.
normal
Yeah.
when you're going through a learning game. You just have to give yourself permission before you even start that's part of it.
Yeah.
And that was super fun.
Yeah.
I love how tied into the show it is. Like much more than what I was even expecting. It really makes like if you've watched it, it calls up a lot of good memories. I'm curious when we get into the post-game discussion to sort of get your take on it. Does it land differently? If you haven't been watching the show, I'd be super interested to just get some thoughts on that. So if you're watching our extended gameplay, thanks for watching. If you're watching our episode, we'll be back here in a few minutes for our post-game discussion.
Yes.
All right, we're back. So if you're watching us on YouTube, we are going to offer up the full-length, uninterrupted gameplay if there are folks that would like to see a little bit more detail of how the rounds play out. We wanted to just sort of give you an idea in this episode of what it's like. Total gameplay was about an hour and 50 minutes.
But it went by
Honestly.
fast.
We did.
For me, it went by really fast.
I couldn't believe that we'd been playing for 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, excited about that. And it was a blast playing together. You helped us defeat Asajj Ventress,
That was pretty fun.
which frankly I have mixed feelings about. The more you delve into that expanded universe, like she's got a lot of layers to her character. And that's one of the things that's so great about what they've been doing with Star Wars these days is even the characters that start out as a simple villain have
anti-hero sort of qualities
Yeah.
later on.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Asajj has been a favorite of yours for a while.
I do, yeah.
So usually in an episode, we want to talk about like, are there aspects of the game that show up in the lore or vice versa? And what's great about this is the missions we were doing are literally episodes of the show, the animated show, the Clone Wars. All 3 of those were episodes I remembered watching with you without even having to go and look them up. We got to see the oil refinery on Kashyyyk. We got to see let's see, what are the 3 we did? The Citadel Rescue was the one that we won the game on. Aaron won the game.
Yes.
And I think you single-handedly did the other 2 missions, right?
That's true.
You guys did one of them together, maybe.
Yeah, we were on the same planet for one of them.
Yeah.
That was a nice element of watching you guys collaborate to make one of them happen.
I have to say that's one of the things that I didn't really know as someone who's not as avid or have as much experience with this specific kind of board game is the cooperative way that we were able to work together. Yeah. So I kind of got rid of some people like me that maybe have a little bit of, it's a new game and like I'm competitive and I want to make sure I don't look like an idiot kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was cooperative took that pressure off, I realized.
That's good.
And it was just kind of fun because I knew that I was allowed to help you and you were allowed to help me. And it was us against the game.
Yeah.
Which I just felt like, I need to play more games like that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many.
There's some really good ones.
Yeah.
And for this theme where you're supposed to feel like you're banding together and the odds are kind of against you and like it's a perfect setting.
Yeah.
Really liked it. Man, having the conspiracy mission be one of the ones we played was really special because that episode where a character has their Order 66 chip trigger when it's not supposed to was fantastic. That to me really kind of opened my mind up to what kinds of side stories could they explore in a show like that they're not going to have time for in the movies, but it's a fascinating question of like, well, then what exactly would happen? And
it's just crazy how many more directions they can go in now with the TV shows too. Like it's just
and when you're
it's a great time to be a fan.
We're kind of in a golden age now. We're
I know.
Probably getting a little spoiled, but the characters we're seeing in live action now have all of this history in their memory banks. And so anytime a writer wants to call up any of that and have it influence their decision making or their emotional reaction to something, like they have a lot to draw on. Yeah. So we played as Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka. You could play as other configurations of the hero characters that are available. I see Aayla Secura, I see Yoda, Luminara, Unduli, and Mace Windu, and they all have different special abilities. You can play against different villains, but Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka they're near and dear to our hearts from watching all that time they're together in the show. And then we just recently got to meet the voice actors from the show at a local con, and that was really special. We talked about it in one of our bonus episodes, and that was kind of a bucket list item to meet them for so long. Ashley Eckstein, who voices Ahsoka, is sort of a prominent figure in our house.
Yeah.
Like you can't really swing a lightsaber
I don't
without.
know if you've noticed.
It's very subtly incorporated into the design of the room.
Yeah.
But
and the design of the room is gorgeous.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's probably a good segue. I was going to make a quick mention of Ventress, who's voiced by an actress named Nika Futterman. Bridget, you turned up the first kind of origins of Ventress as a character. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I think it was in the Clone Wars movie, wasn't it?
She goes all the way back to the animated movie.
Yeah, I think that was the first appearance of Ventress, if I remember right.
You were telling me the artist who designed her also gave us another prominent character.
Yeah, Phasma. The concept art eventually got turned into Captain Phasma.
He
Same
designed
artist.
that chrome armor.
Yeah. It was supposed to be a chrome stormtrooper, and it eventually turned into Captain Phasma.
They developed that idea
Yeah.
from there. That's cool.
From the concept art.
Yeah, Asajj is really a big sort of point of discussion for a lot of people because she's such a complicated character. When we were at that con, there was so much programming, we couldn't go to all the stuff we wanted to. You'd either be in line for a photo op while a panel was going on that you also wanted to see or something. It was There was a lot. And Bridget went to the panel they did, those voice actors from Clone Wars, and took some of the best, most detailed notes on what
Typing
they
on my phone
covered
quickly.
so that I could like see what I missed and
Oh,
like
that's so
catch up on the
cool.
discussion, which
On the ride back home, which is a good 45-minute ride, I just went through my notes and
Oh my
reiterated
gosh, you're the
what,
best partner
was
ever.
amazing.
That's great. It's like you have a spy on the inside for anything you weren't able to get to.
It was fun.
I still can't believe you did that. Thank you for doing that. Do you want to share a couple of the things that the panel said about Asajj Ventress?
Yeah, the audience had some great questions for the panelists. And one of the questions somebody asked was, if you could see a storyline play out on television or in a movie that we haven't seen yet, who would you want that to be? And I think a couple of the panelists said Asajj. We want to see that.
Yeah.
We want to see her storyline in live action or animated, whatever. We want to see more of her.
Yeah. Sometimes on the show, we also like to explore, like, are there different versions of the game, different variants? Like, we played Sabacc in our first episode, and there's different rule sets and different ways to play Sabacc. Pandemic was so popular, it gave rise to a bunch of expansions that you could buy that kind of like tweak the gameplay or add new elements. And because this game is so new, they haven't done expansions yet that I'm aware of, but I think they easily could. And I'm hoping it's a hit so that they'll want to do that. It'd be really fun to see, expansions take different forms. Sometimes they're just giving you more cards that do other stuff, but sometimes they'll literally add like another sideboard that augments the original board. Like in Pandemic, there's a popular expansion called In the Lab, where the sideboard now represents the lab where the cures are being created, and you actually have little plastic petri dishes, and you are developing the cure and like doing genome sequencing and stuff to arrive at the cure. So you're actually seeing, how does the thing we were doing in the main game actually get done? I feel like you're participating in that. So if they could find a way to translate some of that stuff into this world.
So what's happening in
I'd
order
be
to
there
get
for
it
it
on the board
Yeah.
eventually?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that'd be fascinating.
Like as you're recruiting these new squad members into your hand, I could see a queue where they're going through their training, and you can maybe influence
Who's being
along some
trained?
sort of a tree, who's being trained or what are they being trained in, so they can specialize a little bit to where by the time they come into your hand, you sort of feel like you did that, like you made that possible. We talk a little bit about strategy on this show in a segment we call Let the Wookiee Win. I suggest a new strategy. Let the Wookiee win. So usually by the time we've played a game once, we start to have a better sense of what would we have done different. Anything come to mind? I know I noticed a couple things for myself. Did you have anything that was jumping out at you now that you know the game a little bit better?
Yeah, I think the first at least 2 rounds when I was concentrating on just getting through what am I supposed to do in what order, that my character's card that has the free action, I wasn't paying attention to that for the first couple of rounds.
Yeah.
And so I think I could have taken advantage of that a little bit better, leaned into my strength and used that wherever it made the most sense at the beginning of each turn or during it or whatever, especially in conjunction with what are our main missions, what kind of characters or special abilities are we going to need in order to win that mission, and how do I literally stack the deck with my character's power
Yep.
of
That's
being
perfect.
able to grab more cards in a quicker way in order to make sure we were prepared by the time we got there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would have, my first couple of turns, grabbed more cards, at least for one of those turns, so that I had a nice variety of cards to help me. And knowing now that the allies you can only use once.
Yeah. We kind of learned that. It was so great there for a while, though,
It
wasn't
was.
it?
We had the training wheels
To
on.
be careful when to use them, and
Why is
know
this
that
game
you're
so
gonna-
easy?
Yeah.
Why is she killing this?
Yeah, definitely maxing out your hand early on feels like an easy one as a takeaway for anyone who's getting ready to play this game for the first time. Use that reinforce action early to just load your hand with as many
Right.
squad members and allies as you can. Those ally cards are powerful.
They are. Which I guess is why they only let you use it once.
Yeah, and there's only like maybe 7 of them in the deck. I think I saw 7 or 8.
And I had 4 of them.
They,
They just gravitated towards you during the game. It was fantastic.
and I promise I shuffled the hell out of those cards. So they wanted to be on your team.
Yep.
That part I feel good about. But they are they would be way overpowered if you were allowed to just keep on using them. So it makes sense. But it was good to see them in action, so we know how what their benefit is. I think having a nice mix of cards is good. Like you sort of had all your bases covered by the end. Although I could see, especially maybe if you had a few more players, you could start to specialize and be like, okay, I'm going to play the stealth role, so that if you had much harder missions, because there's missions that are going to need a lot more of each thing, or might require you to go really deep in one area, you could decide one player is going to be the stealth player and somebody else is going to be the attack player. But honestly, when you guys got together and did the mission, that was one of my favorite parts. And I think that's going to be crucial on anything above the novice difficulty.
I think you would have to be at least 2 of you on the same planet in order to with the more advanced ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where the game gets, this is where the fun begins.
Yeah, and at first I thought the armor thing's kind of boring. I want more ships and I want more stealth and guys that are going to fight and stuff. And then this armor card saved me 5 times from taking
I
hit
think you need
damage.
at least one of those.
Yeah.
And then probably more as the game gets harder. Because you could see it starting to snowball even on this easiest difficulty level. I liked the die. The 12-sided die was fun because that's an element that we don't see in Pandemic. One of the things we talk a lot about is the luck factor. Luck gets hotly debated when board game enthusiasts get together and talk about the quality of a game design.
Okay.
Some people are very against luck as an element in a game. I like there to be some because it helps me feel like the success or failure is not all riding on my ability to craft a masterful strategy, which most of the time I'm not going to do.
Yeah, I know.
I'll just be honest.
I want to enjoy my blurred drink.
That's what the cocktails are for.
Exactly.
Bridget, I've heard you express hesitancy around games that require a lot of strategy, and yet I've also seen you be really good at it.
Yeah, that surprises me because I felt like you were our strongest strategy player.
I guess.
Listening to you talk through those first couple of rounds, I was like, oh, okay, that's the way I should do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is nice when it's a mix. So we kind of rate the games we're playing now on a sort of luck meter, because there's that line in A New Hope where Obi-Wan says, in my experience, there's no such thing as luck. And so it felt like, if luck and fate and destiny are such a thematic part of the Star Wars story, it's totally kind of on brand that we're experiencing that in these games in different degrees, and they're all going to be different. Where would you guys kind of put the luck factor for this one on a scale of 1 to 10? I felt like it was pretty low.
You really got to be able to pivot quickly from your strategy after every turn.
Yeah.
I mean, the luck thing I felt like was mostly represented by whatever the cards would say where new bad guys were going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever you roll.
That was the luck that we were then changing our strategy against.
Yeah. I think a good game design, at least for me, will have a certain amount of randomness that does force you to adjust your strategy. Otherwise, it's just going to sort of
We
feel
don't
like,
want it too predictable.
yeah, it's on rails. And then you have a certain amount of ability to mitigate and keep it interesting. So we have cards and we have dice sort of giving us that luck element, but I thought we were able to adjust and support each other and, get through it. Yeah, so that's kind of our strategy segment. The next segment we do is called the Bantha in the Room, where we just acknowledge if there's anything sort of glaring about a game that we feel like maybe took away from the experience a little bit or that we would change if we could. I didn't actually have many complaints about this one. Did you guys have anything that you were like, it feels like they sort of phoned it in on that portion?
I don't feel like I would change anything at all. I think the more you play, the easier it'll get, but just remembering, like Aaron was talking about, what's a special ability, and need to look at that every turn to make sure that I'm utilizing everything that I can that are on these cards.
Yeah. What I thought was going to be the Bantha in the Room as we were preparing the episode is I was 100% picturing myself sitting here saying the Bantha in the Room is just Pandemic.
Oh, gotcha.
And if you already have Pandemic and have played it, this is not going to offer you anything new. And that is not my reaction at all.
No.
Okay. Yeah, and I had no frame of reference, so
It's different enough.
Yeah. I
It'd be a
love
great addition to your pandemic.
If you already liked Pandemic.
yeah.
Yeah. It's got enough of its own flavor to be worth it. I think it can stand on its own. If you like the Clone Wars, it's a no-brainer. I would 100% recommend it to anybody who's a fan and has a little bit of a nostalgic hit from revisiting the show in some way. I was curious to hear your take as somebody who has not been all through the Clone Wars. How does it
let it
come
all out.
across?
Let it all out. I know. This is my failing in the Star Wars universe. I have not made it all the way through that series.
Well, man, there's very serious hardcore Star Wars fans who haven't seen a single episode of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And it's just because there's a lot of it, or they don't know that there's such good content in there to be had.
Yeah.
But like, does any of this register as fun?
This
or
made me
interesting?
want to go back and watch it.
It did.
Yes.
Oh, good.
My son's been after me. He's been after me to go ahead and complete it because he's been pointing out to me in other properties since then how there's a callback or an Easter egg that is, he's like, well, you would have known that about that character if you had watched that. And I'm like, okay, I cannot let my 14-year-old outpace me in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and watch it. I think that first season, because of the fact that they maybe were still dialing in what they wanted to do with it and if there was going to be a larger overall theme and kind of what they were doing with it, I got through the first season and I think I had a feeling of disjointedness about it and like,
Yeah.
but I think it went on, obviously, over those 7 seasons to become something much greater than that first maybe season might have teased me with at the
Yeah.
beginning. So
Yeah.
I think I just need to set aside the time and do it.
There's a distinct inflection point somewhere, I think, in that second season, maybe. I can't remember if you have to get all the way into the third season, but it does go from being, oh, that's like some fun Star Wars. And like, I got to see some lightsabers and some battle droids. It goes to, oh, I'm going to need some time alone to emotionally process
Yes.
that
that's so
episode.
true.
You
I
guys-
didn't make it through my first attempt at watching the series.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
I
Okay.
didn't make it through, and I didn't know that it was all out of order that first season.
You guys blew my mind
Yeah.
with that when you mentioned
I didn't know that, and
Yeah, I didn't
so
realize that.
I was watching, and I thought, well, what are my friends talking about? This is just a cartoon.
Yeah, totally.
And
Yeah.
it's so much more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, boy, this is something I didn't know either about the release order. And I had heard people talking about, oh, you should watch them in this order or that order. And I kind of ignored that discussion because people had said things about that, about the movies. And I remember just thinking, why don't you just let artists make the art they want to make and just let, you don't have to enjoy it if you don't want to. But what I didn't understand is in this case, that's not what the discussion was.
Yeah.
It was Cartoon Network
Yeah.
airing the episodes sort of like the show Firefly, not in the order that was intended by the people that made it, and kind of messing with your ability to follow what's happening.
Can we talk about that a little bit? Like, obviously, I don't feel like anyone would make that choice just out of spite. So why were they shown not in the intended order? Were
don't
they
know.
not delivered in the right order?
I
doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know.
I don't know the story, and I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because why would
Somebody
you make that
knows.
choice?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Unless they were like, some cigar chomping executive was like, this one won't play with that demographic. Give us a different one. I don't understand like why you would do that.
Yeah. And I think there was concern maybe about whether people would take to the story or to Ahsoka or just the concept in general. If they only saw like one 22-minute episode, like would that be enough to hook you? And so I think that's where the idea of maybe combining some of them together into the animated movie as a way to kick it off came from.
Okay.
I don't know that that's a fact. I feel like I've read versions of that speculation.
Because then you care about the character and invest it.
Yeah.
And you want to see more episodes on them.
I think you need something to get you engaged. But yeah, I had started watching for a while and then kind of trailed off, and then I re-engaged, watched it with my kids. But even then, we only got as far as the 6th season, which is the point when it was canceled, and nothing's resolved. Nothing's closed. There is some very nice stuff that they do towards the end of that, but it wasn't until they got the opportunity to go back and do that 7th season in the first place.
Yeah.
Very emotional experience. There was some ideas that they had for the next season that they never got to do, some of which is the Asajj Ventress storyline. She has a very good story that would have played out in the season that was canceled that now shows up in the form of a novel.
I was going to say, did they decide to complete that like some other properties have, like Firefly,
Yeah.
like through comic books or a novel or...
Yeah. There's a book called Dark Disciple, and we listened to the audiobook of that earlier this year. There's a guy named Mark Thompson who narrates a ton of the Star Wars books, and
He's incredible. He's
Yeah.
up there with D. Bradley Baker and those two.
Oh, really?
Oh, those two are just top.
yeah, just a total maestro of voices, and they're now using him pretty consistently for so many of the Star Wars novels. There's literally a moment in the story when I think you have a conversation between Palpatine, Count Dooku, and Asajj Ventress, and it's him doing all of the voices, and you completely buy it. Like, so great. Yeah, and so that's a story where if you were watching the Clone Wars and felt like you never quite got enough closure or resolution to the Asajj Ventress story, I want to highly recommend that novel, Dark Disciple. Totally worthwhile read. Yeah. So, Aaron, this episode's been a long time coming. We've been trying to get this to happen for a while now, and it took you being pretty patient with me to sort of figure this process out.
Oh, not at all.
How to film these episodes.
I'm happy to be here. This was great.
I wanted to have you tell our viewers a little bit about Storied Coaching and what you do there and kind of where that idea came from.
Well, it's funny that we're specifically playing games like this because anyone that knows, about kind of the Star Wars journey of Lucas deciding to make Star Wars, he started a friendship up with Joseph Campbell, who someone that came up with all of these different places that throughout the world, there was the thematic hero's journey. It's called the monomyth. And it's this repeatable structure that you can see through most major, I can't think of a major religion that doesn't use it, where there's a hero that goes on a journey and ultimately goes through a quest and has to come out a different person, changed on the inside and the outside. And so when Lucas was trying to come up with Star Wars and the way he wanted to tell the story, he was familiar with Joseph Campbell's work, and he actually reached out to him and talked to him and said, like, hey, surprisingly, even he will say to himself, like, Joseph Campbell was interested in talking with him. This guy that is making, a kid to him and making his first film. And this was this world-renowned scholar that had, done all this research and all this stuff. And they had conversations together about the script. And, he gave him some input, lots of input about the journey that Luke should go on. And also probably knew at that point, the rest of us didn't, about Darth Vader and the adventure he had gone, his own hero's journey before, but that had come out a very different way. And there's these different beats that you can hit that kind of play out throughout most of these hero journey stories in a certain order. And this has been a big influence in my life, starting out as myself as a performer when I was younger and getting a degree in acting and directing, and then going on from there and acting for a while, and then becoming a casting director, and then going on opening up my own production company. Like, there's been a theme of storytelling kind of throughout my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It's
me
like
playing
core to
different
who you
roles.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I was like, you know what I really enjoy doing is kind of coaching other people through their stories. And so got to the point where I wanted to create Storied Coaching. And I went and got my own training on how to become a better coach, but then was trying to figure out what I wanted to help people with. And I was like, well, it's storytelling. Like, I love seeing how we as human beings, the world over, love listening and watching our episodic TV shows and movies and reading, through religion, books, all these things. There's such power in story. And the most powerful stories that affect us on a daily basis, that form the base operating system of our lives, are the stories that we sometimes don't even say out loud to ourselves or the people around us. They're the ones that are going on inside of our brain. The stories that we choose to believe about ourselves and how we walk through the world affects everything, from how we define ourselves and how we show up to our families, in our business, entrepreneurs. A lot of times that I'm working with, business leaders and things like that, the way they think of themselves and the way that they of the hero they want to be at the end of their journey affects all the people that they work with and that follow them if they're a good leader.
Yeah.
And so I just love working with people, and that's what we do with Storied Coaching. Sometimes we're working with people on let's go inside and figure out, you have a story you're living right now. Is it a default story that is kind of just accumulated like barnacles over your life? And this is kind of who you are now, but maybe it's not who you intended to be.
Yeah.
What would it be like if we scraped some of that off and got more intentional about it? You can decide to change your hero's journey and redefine yourself as a hero however you want, and go through these different stages of the hero's journey to come out a different person on the other side, a different result. So the inner work with working with a person like that, or if it's, let's talk about what is the hero story for your marketing of the thing you want to start.
Yeah.
For an amazing podcast that you want to start that's specifically about board games, and like making some, like, that was a story in your brain that wasn't possible at one point, but then you decided in your brain, you convinced yourself that story was possible for you, that you could do that.
Yeah.
and you had to overcome some things in order to order everything from the tangible of the microphones we're talking through right now and headsets we have on, and talking with your partner about if they would be supportive about it and getting them excited, and you two getting together and then deciding to make like there's so many pieces that went into your story that now it's tangible.
Yeah.
And now it seems like, oh, of course, this is what we did. But it had to start with a story that you had to tell yourself that it was possible and that you could become a different version of yourself in order to do it. And I just think that so many times we forget that it's possible for us to tell ourselves a new story whenever we want.
Yeah. It's powerful, dude. And I will tell you, I was listening to your podcast daily for a lot of the period where we were kind of putting together this process and trying to figure out, like, can we do it? Are we biting off more than we can chew here? Am I just having delusions of grandeur?
Dragons to slay. Like, there are things you don't know, and we make that big and scary in our head.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
And so getting over that hump was heavily facilitated by listening to your show being part of my daily routine. So thank you for that.
Helpful. Yeah.
By the way, you mentioned the room. In this room, I don't think would have happened if it wasn't for you. You did, I can't remember if it was an episode of your show or if it was a conversation we had a long time ago about curated background as a concept. As we got into the pandemic and we were on camera more, and you really sort of opened my eyes to how interesting it can be if we just put a little bit of intentional thought into what are people seeing behind us. And I remember asking you, what do you mean exactly by curated background? Do you mean just like some nice stuff back there? And you were like, ideally something that's so specific to the core of who you are as a person that someone could just see your background without you in it and immediately go, that's John Griffin's background.
That's your brand.
Or that's Bridget Howe.
Yeah.
And something clicked. So I did sort of a mini version of what's going on in here in my office because I did want people who saw me on camera to feel like, oh, John is comfortable sharing that part of himself with us. And he's normalizing that it's okay to do that and modeling the behavior for others so that they'll feel like they can do it. That was sort of what
it's
I wanted.
amazing how if you make the first move of being vulnerable, how much that affects other people's willingness to open up to you much faster.
Yeah.
And in business and when you're working with customers and team members, like, make the first move.
Yeah. You've done some really good teaching on that show about the importance of being vulnerable, the importance of identifying that internal monologue that we all have.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of really nice coverage on imposter syndrome, which we all have. And recently you did an episode about, what's going on in the economy, and people have a lot of anxiety about my job security and that sort of thing. That was a fantastic episode with some really thoughtful insights from Dr. Amy Service.
Yes.
Who,
mutual friend. She's amazing, isn't she?
Yep. I would love that episode because of some of the stuff she had to share. I've actually forwarded that episode to colleagues who just, sometimes express that they don't know what to expect.
So many people are worried right now to have that story of scarcity, and it's all over the media.
Yeah.
And really have to be careful about what we let in to color our own stories that are in our brains.
Yeah.
Because even if some of it's, I'm not even talking about what's true and what's not true. I'm just talking about the effect it has on you and your story.
Yeah.
And then that causes you to act a certain way, which causes you to get a certain result.
Yeah.
So you just be careful, like, how much of that scarcity versus abundance thinking that you allow in on your daily basis and how it affects your work.
Yeah. You really, at some point, I can't remember exactly when this was, but I remember you making the comment about the middle chapter, the story being the darkest.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't stop to notice that if you're having a struggle or a difficult period of your life, you may just be in your middle chapter. That doesn't mean that's your story now. It just means you haven't finished passing through it.
Another way to put that, I've heard someone else talk about it as the river of misery. Like, everyone has to wade through it during their adventure, their hero's journey.
Yeah.
There's something that happens that seems so insurmountable, and like you're not going to be able to get through it.
Yeah.
And you'll get through the other side of it, but it's kind of like when it's at its darkest, like it's kind of when it can turn around on you.
Yeah.
But,
There was one more of those I was going to call out.
no, but if you were talking about like the background curation and things like that, that's probably from, we've got, because of the production company and everything like that, we do that corporate training. So that's what people learn about. Like, I like to be sneaky. So what I do is a lot of times these larger corporations, like software companies and stuff we work with, they will bring us in under the auspices of training their pre-sales or their salespeople on just how to sell more blue widgets. Okay. And we do, through storytelling, help them be able to be more effective at whoever they're talking to, an executive, a manager, or an operational person. Like, tell it in a story, because everyone can access a story. You know, we're familiar with that pattern. Like I said, we love watching Netflix. We love watching movies. We love reading books. Like, wrap it in a story that makes it technology easy for people to understand.
Yeah.
But while we're doing that, we're sneakily also telling them how to, like, okay, here's how to grow your personal brand. So here's how to curate your background. Here's what we do in production sets. It's not as hard as you think. Here's how to do basic lighting. Here's how to set your camera up so that you feel like you're not looking down or looking up, and like, so that you feel good and more confident about that stuff. And then also let's figure out, like, what's holding you back right now from, like, let's start to get into your stories of, like, where do you want your career to go? Where do you, like, all of these skills that you can learn about storytelling can actually help you when you're also negotiating what's your next role that you want. Are you negotiating your salary increase? Are you negotiating like with your team on what direction you think the team should go to be successful? Like, how to tell a story that makes you show up in the best light and also is the most convincing way you could tell that story.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, we like to be sneaky about it.
I feel like you're digging into something very deep and ancestral by talking about storytelling. It's such a big part of, folks' culture.
Yeah.
And their history.
Across the world. That's what I love about too, is it's across the world. We love giving and receiving stories.
Yeah.
From the earliest times of us, our ancestors sitting around a fire and the kids learning at the feet of the elder of this is the story of this, and it's teaching some sort of morality tale in the way of, like, a lot of times aligned to whatever their religious beliefs were, but at the same time, like, how to treat each other. Like, this is the way that we act. And we teach that through story. And then there's a theme of why you want to do that, and learning. And as kids, we're so open to that and storytelling and kind of listening to how we can recreate our story. And our brains are so elastic, and those, neurotransmitters and, like, all of those connections just seem like, of course, we can do that. We can move around and change our stories. And I don't know, I think for other people probably as well, but definitely for me, as I got into midlife, some of that stuff started to feel like it was getting calcified a little bit. Like, no, I did all this other stuff up to this point, so I can't change direction now. Like, what would they think?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so we lock ourselves in our own stories, our own BS sometimes.
Yeah.
When literally no one else is paying attention to us. We can change that story whenever we want. But we make it so that we're locking ourselves in.
Heroes always go through some sort of trial or setback, once they're kind of on the road. But I love you did an episode not too long ago about that important moment when the hero themselves actually tries to say no.
Oh, it's right at the beginning.
Tries to pass on the, just let it pass them by.
Yeah.
Because it's too uncomfortable,
That's the thing too that I've noticed when I start working with people and they're thinking about what they want to do, is that they have guilt over not having started sooner, or that they're doing it now, and that, like, I probably can't do it. That imposter syndrome type of thing. Like, I'm not a hero, I couldn't do that kind of thing. And it's literally one of the first stages. It's like there is the call to adventure, and then the second stage before you meet the mentor, your Obi-Wan Kenobi, your Gandalf. There's a second stage in there that Bilbo does as well, that Luke does as well, is where they go like, no, I can't do that. I'm just a farm boy. I'm sure I can take you as far as Anchorhead.
Comfortable in my hobbit
You can find
hole.
someone there to help you.
Yeah.
Or Bilbo going like, no, I'm fine here. Like, I don't want to go on an adventure. What are you talking about? I want to sign this contract.
It's culturally uncomfortable for hobbits to get in adventures.
Totally.
I can't rock
But
the boat.
that is a necessary step for any hero, to not want to do it, to reject it, and then to decide to change their mind and decide to do it anyway, even though there's fear. And so just because you have fear doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or that you're broken. The fear is the only thing that's going to allow you to call up the courage to go on the adventure. Yeah. So don't skip that. It's a necessary step.
Yeah. One of the things I love the most about A New Hope is Luke tells Obi-Wan no. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll give you a ride, but like that's all I got.
I can totally give you a ride.
That's best I can do is Anchorhead.
Cool lightsaber though, bro.
Because he would feel guilty about leaving his aunt and uncle. Well, next scene, they get killed.
Yeah.
And what fascinates me about that story point is it's Vader's fault they get killed. And if that wouldn't have happened, Luke would have probably stayed on the farm out of guilt.
Yeah.
And Vader could have proceeded along with it on his merry way and
So true.
not had as many challenges and setbacks. I noticed throughout the whole Star Wars story, there's tons of moments like that where it's a fine line. Usually it comes down to something R2-D2 does. Like if he doesn't do that one thing, nothing else happens. We talked about a little bit about learning to ride the Blurrg because of our Blurrgfire cocktails and what that unlocks for the rest of the story. I love my favorite, I think, out of all of them is the two guys who do not shoot down the escape pod.
Oh yeah. Totally.
And specifically not the guy who's about to, but the other guy who says, don't bother.
Yeah, I scanned it. It's
no life forms.
no life forms.
So we're fine here. That guy is personally responsible for the destruction of not one, but 2 Death Stars.
It'd be so fun to see an episode of just like how that played out
His
for
backstory,
him.
yeah.
No, like later on too. Like he just can't get a job. Like
That's going to follow his in
the
his
Empire
career.
totally canceled him.
Yeah.
Like,
That's definitely going in your file.
HR like had some stuff to say to him.
Yeah.
Like,
You're not getting away from that one. So Aaron, you not only have this podcast where you do all this amazing teaching that I can't believe is just freely available. Because seriously, dude, some of it's like a masterclass in how to kind of mentally navigate some of the hardest thought work that you have to do in your career. But you also do this coaching on site with customers.
Yeah.
You have a whole team that does this. There's different configurations of that consulting service. If people want to engage you, how do they find you?
I mean, the easiest way is just to, if you kind of want to hear what the whole thing is, then tune into the podcast. It's, Storied Coaching with Aaron J. Jacobs.
Yep.
You'll see the guy with normally, if I didn't have a baseball cap on, like shaved head, and you'll know it's me. And then other than that, just go to storiedcoaching.com.
Yeah.
And you can check out some stuff there. We've actually got a free thing right now that you can get. You can click on Start Here, and there's an 8-minute video that tells them a little bit about how to fine-tune their camera work and camera placement and camera engagement.
Yeah.
For anyone who's on camera, even if it's just Zoom meetings, like how to come across better and engage with the camera better.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
with your audience. And then there's a download guide that has some of the links to our favorite video gear and audio gear and lighting gear. It's affordable. It's like Amazon links.
Yeah.
That way you can kind of up your game in your own little home office or at work and just feel more confident when you're presenting over camera.
Yeah. You really put together a nice recipe that helps. It's going to help anybody who takes advantage of it. So highly recommended.
Yeah.
Great job, man. So Aaron, this has been a blast. Thank you for doing this with us.
Absolutely.
A fun thing that we are going to be doing at the end of each episode is a little prize giveaway.
Oh my gosh, you have swag. So cool.
We've got some swag for a lucky viewer. One of the things we're kind of doing with this project is we're seeing what does it take to build a social media presence and an audience from zero, from absolute scratch. How hard is it? I bet it's pretty hard, but it would be kind of fun to see like, what does that take? And so we're going to be giving away a prize in each episode to one of our subscribers. And right now there's not very many subscribers. So your odds of winning are good.
Get on this train now.
You should be taking advantage.
Toot toot.
So in our first episode, we played Sabacc, the card game that won Han Solo the Millennium Falcon from Lando, which they now sell in a nice collectible set.
That's so cool. So portable.
At Galaxy's Edge, very portable. Bridget and I were there not that long ago, and we picked up a copy personally. So this is actually hand procured from the Toydarian toy maker at Black Spire Outpost. And we wanted to give away a copy of this to one of our subscribers. And so earlier today, we drew one of our subscribers from that early base. And the winner is Alfonso Woods. Yay. So
Congratulations, Alfonso.
Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. That really just absolutely means the world to us. We're going to reach out to you after this episode drops, and we'll figure out a good way to get this over to you right away. We hope you have an opportunity to play it, with some of your favorite people. That's kind of our favorite aspect of this, is just that bonding time when we're playing together. So if you take a photo of your group playing this and you send it to us, we're going to show it off on the episode if
so
you
cool.
tell us it's okay. So this has been really fun. I think we should keep that energy going. Do you guys think we should give away a copy of the Clone Wars on our next episode?
I loved
Yes.
it. Yes, someone lucky person should get one of these.
Yeah, I enjoyed this game, and I think it's kind of a new favorite. And like I said at the top of the episode, I think this might be my preferred way to play this game system now, and I'm curious to see what else they'll do with it. So that about wraps up this episode. We're going to put links in the show notes if there were anything, any interesting tidbits or things we want to point to. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. That way you're going to catch new episodes as soon as they drop. That's also going to help you be eligible for prize giveaways like
God,
this.
Come on.
So if you're listening on the audio podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and you want to see more of what we're doing visually, check out our YouTube channel. It's at Board Game Cantina, and you'll be able to put some faces with the names. And we're also going to post extended gameplay videos since we won't have time to show all of it here in these episodes. But if you want to see the full shoot and match, then that'll be there on YouTube as well.
And then you can see our really good hand modeling skills. Like you'll see our hands a lot from the camera.
Yeah, your hands
on the
look nice.
board. Like I got a manicure just for no, I didn't. But
Did you moisturize?
let's pretend I moisturized.
Okay.
But like, yeah, a lot of hand modeling.
There is.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get some sponsors from like bracelet makers and watchmakers.
Oh,
Did I just open a whole new
the whole new
dimension?
Yep. You being here is like worth its weight in gold on so many
Producer
levels.
mindset. How can we make more money off this property?
We haven't monetized this. Okay, you can also follow us on Instagram. It's at Board Game Cantina. We're at Board Game Cantina everywhere. The content that we put on Instagram is going to be a little more of maybe like behind the scenes. Like I've already got a lot of friends asking like, how exactly are you going about this? And they're sort of interested in learning. And we had so many cool people help us and give us advice, including yourself.
But you've
that I'm
leveled
gonna
it up.
Pass that on.
It looks great. Yeah. So if anyone gets advice from you, I think they're well served because you guys have got a great setup you've done here.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
And thanks for all the part that you played in helping us get to this point. I don't think we'd be doing this if it wasn't for people like you. So it
I will
means a
take
lot.
the compliment, but like I said, you're doing great.
Yeah. So Bridget, do you want to tell them what's on tap for the next episode?
Yes. Come visit Board Game Cantina again for our next episode, where we'll mix up another fun galactic cocktail together and learn to play Dejeric, the ancient chess-like game that we first saw played as Hollow Chess in A New Hope.
So thanks for playing with us today, Aaron. This was really kind of a dream come true for me to get to this point. Would you tell the folks one more time where they can find you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. The best way to find out more about what we do is just to go to storiedcoaching.com, storied with a D. And there you can check out podcast episodes. You can see kind of the different courses that we offer. And you can also get a freebie download that will allow you to figure out how to look better on camera, and also a guide that will show you how to set up some basic gear and feel really good about yourself while you're on your next Zoom meeting.
Yeah, it's helped me so much already. So I really hope other people can check it out and benefit from
Yeah,
it.
sure thing.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time, may you have the better hand.
Till the spire.